In 1795, teenager Daniel McGinnis was settling in at his parents' house in Nova Scotia when he noticed strange lights coming from a nearby island. Curious, he decided to check it out. As he explored the island, McGinnis stumbled upon a strange sight: a circular depression in the ground, about 13 feet across. The trees around the area had been cut down, and there was a block and tackle system hanging from a branch above the pit. McGinnis was convinced something exciting was hidden beneath. Gathering his friends, John Smith and Anthony Vaughn, the trio began to dig. Why were the boys so excited about a hole in the ground on an otherwise boring island? It has to do with a period in Nova Scotia's history called the Golden Age of Piracy. Between 1690 and 1730, piracy was rampant, and Nova Scotia was a popular spot for pirates to hide. The island's remote location and abundance of natural resources made it an ideal spot to make repairs, hide from authorities, and bury treasure. Adding to the legend, famous pirate Captain William Kidd even admitted to burying a fortune somewhere in the area before he was caught. What these boys stumbled upon in 1795 would forever set Oak Island's reputation as a place of hidden treasure. Fueled by tales of pirates and treasure, McGinnis and his friends dug into their excavation on Oak Island. It didn't take long for them to uncover evidence that ignited their imaginations. Just 2 feet below the surface, a layer of stone extended across the pit's opening. They pried open the stone floor, anticipating a treasure, but only found more dirt. Undeterred, they pressed on. As they burrowed deeper, the pit began to narrow. They also noticed remnants of their predecessors' work, pickaxe marks imprinted in the tunnel wall. Could these marks have been left by pirates securing their treasure? At 10 feet, the boys encountered a layer of rotting wood timbers spanning the width of the hole to form a platform. The ends had been driven into the sides of the wall, anchoring the structure in place. This deliberate barrier and the hollow sound beneath the timbers fueled the boys' belief that the treasure lay within reach. However, removing the timbers revealed only a pocket of air and more dirt. McGinnis and his friends pressed on. Around 20 feet, they encountered another level of timbers, but clearing the second platform only revealed more dirt. The team dug another 5 feet, finding nothing, and decided to suspend their efforts. But the search for Oak Island's buried treasure didn't end there. As tales of a hidden treasure on Oak Island spread, a group known as the Onslow Company arrived in 1802, determined to unearth the fortune. The Onslow Company embarked on a relentless excavation, venturing deeper than the teenagers' earlier attempts. At every 10-foot interval, they encountered layers of logs, hinting at a constructed system. Their efforts also unearthed evidence of prior activity: charcoal, putty, coconut fibers, and a large stone inscribed with cryptic symbols. However, their quest was not without challenges. Around 90 feet below the surface, the money pit abruptly flooded with 60 feet of water, bringing progress to a halt. They attempted to bypass the flooded pit by digging a tunnel from a second shaft, but it also flooded. In 1849, the Truro Company took over the excavation, driven by the same unwavering belief of a treasure. They re-excavated the money pit, but once again, flooding thwarted their progress. A new shaft was dug 109 feet deep northwest of the original hole, hoping to intersect it from a different angle. However, seawater once again flooded their efforts. A flood tunnel system was found in nearby Smith's Cove, but attempts to disable it were unsuccessful. Faced with insurmountable flooding and dwindling funds, the Truro Company was forced to abandon its pursuit in 1851. However, their efforts would inspire a new generation of treasure hunters eager to unravel the mysteries of the Oak Island money pit for years to come. In 1861, the Oak Island Association took up the mantle of fortune hunters, determined to unearth the treasure. They re-excavated the original pit while digging 2 additional shafts, one aimed at intercepting an alleged flood tunnel and the other intended to intersect the original shaft at a depth of 105 feet. However, their efforts were met with persistent challenges. Both of the relief shafts were flooded with water. Additionally, disaster struck when a platform in the original shaft collapsed, causing the platforms below it to fall, burying any potential treasure under a mass of timber. The explosion of a pump engine boiler also caused the first of 6 accidental deaths during the excavations. Undeterred, the Oak Island Association pressed on, digging a new shaft parallel to the original. The new shaft was intended to pump water out of the original shaft. While pumps managed to lower the water to 103 feet, they were unable to keep up with the influx of water. The association made several attempts to shut off and seal the alleged flood tunnels by drilling shafts at Smith's Cove. A final attempt to intersect the money pit in 1864 resulted in yet another flooding. By this time, salt water was undermining the walls of the original shaft, causing some workers to refuse to enter. Mining engineers declared it unsafe, and the company, facing mounting financial pressures, was forced to abandon their efforts in 1865. But they would not be the last treasure hunters to dig into Oak Island. In 1866, the Oak Island Eldorado Company formed to continue the quest for the treasure. By this time, the island was riddled with shafts dug by previous excavations. When their plan to shut the flood tunnels failed, the company decided to focus efforts on the main pit. Exploratory holes revealed bits of wood, coconut fiber, soft clay, and blue mud, but nothing of value. Disheartened, the group abandoned their search in 1867. In 1896, an unidentified group arrived with steam pumps and boring equipment. The pumps failed to keep the water out, but they managed to extract boring samples. Among them was a piece of parchment bearing the letters VI or WI. In 1898, the group poured paint into the flooded pit, claiming it revealed 3 exit holes around the island. In 1909, Captain Henry Bowden, with the Old Gold Salvage Group, arrived on Oak Island. Among his group was Franklin D. Roosevelt. Despite numerous borings, none revealed any evidence of a treasure. Bowden turned his attention to Smith's Cove, where previous explorers reported seeing drain tunnels but found nothing. Bowden also examined the stone cipher, revealing it was a basalt rock devoid of any symbols. With no clues leading to a treasure, Old Gold Salvage departed Oak Island in 1909. Despite their findings, the hunt for Oak Island's treasure didn't stop there. A 1928 New York newspaper article rekindled interest in the Oak Island money pit. In 1931, William Chappell dug a 163-foot shaft southwest of what he believed was the site of the 1897 shaft, which was thought to be close to the original pit. However, there was no concrete evidence of the location. At 127 feet, he discovered a trove of artifacts, including an axe, anchor, and a pick. However, the area was littered with debris from previous excavations, making it impossible to determine its origin. Intrigued by the engineering challenges in retrieving the treasure, Gilbert Hedden, an operator of a steel fabricating company, was captivated by the article. He made 6 trips to Oak Island, collecting books and articles about its history. His travels even took him to England, where he consulted with Harold T. Wilkins, author of Captain Kidd and his Skeleton Island, to explore a possible connection between Oak Island and a map in Wilkins' book. Hedden began digging in the summer of 1935, having purchased the southeastern end of the island. He kept King George VI informed about the developments on the hunt. Despite further excavations in 1935 and 1936, none yielded any significant discoveries. Driven by curiosity about Oak Island's secrets, Daniel Blankenship, David Tobias, Robert Dunfield, and Fred Nolan formed a syndicate in 1967 to explore the island. 2 years later, Blankenship and Tobias established Triton Alliance. Several former landowners became shareholders in the venture. In 1971, Triton workers excavated a 235-foot shaft and reinforced it with a steel caisson that reached bedrock. Triton claimed that cameras lowered into the shaft captured images of potential chests, human remains, and tools. However, the unclear images and lack of independent confirmation cast uncertainty on these claims. Disaster struck when the shaft collapsed, forcing Triton to abandon the excavation. Undeterred, the team re-dug the shaft to 181 feet. However, financial constraints and the dissolution of the partnership brought a halt to the efforts. In 2016, divers sent to the bottom of the hole failed to retrieve any artifacts. Legal battles between Triton partners and lack of financing hindered further exploration. In 2005, a portion of the island was put up for sale for $7 million. It was acquired by a group of American drillers, and the search for a buried treasure continued. The hunt for Oak Island's treasure continued in 1996. Robert Young acquired 4 acres of property with the only untouched land on the island. Young passed away in October 2020, but his discoveries, including a silver 1781 Spanish half-reel, are documented on his website. In 2006, Rick and Marty Legina from Michigan purchased 50% of Oak Island tours. The group, partnered with Blankenship, announced their intention to resume operations on Oak Island, fueled by the hopes of uncovering buried treasure and unraveling the island's mysteries. In 2010, the Nova Scotia Department of Natural Resources and Department of Tourism granted Oak Island Tours a treasure trove license, authorizing them to resume activities until December 2010. Following the expiration of this license, the departments introduced the Oak Island Treasure Act, paving the way for continued treasure hunting on the island under the terms of a license issued by the Minister of Natural Resources. The Legina brothers' exploration has been captured on the History Channel's The Curse of Oak Island since 2014. To this day, the treasure of the Oak Island money pit still remains hidden. The earliest theory of the Oak Island money pit suggests it holds pirate treasure buried by Captain Kidd. Kidd and Henry Avery were reportedly known to have taken treasure together, and Oak Island was supposedly their community bank. However, there is widespread speculation regarding the origin of the pit. One theory suggests the pit is likely a sinkhole connected to limestone caverns. Several sinkholes and caves exist on the mainland near the island. In 1949, a similar pit resembling the early descriptions was discovered in the area on the shore of Mahone Bay. Workers struck a layer of fieldstone at about 2 feet down. Then, logs of spruce and oak were unearthed at intervals. This discovery led to speculation that another money pit had been found. Another theory proposed the pit was part of a tar kiln dating to the period when Oak Island served as a tar-making location as part of the British naval stores industry. Additionally, another proposal suggests that the site is consistent with the illicit salt works of the era. But there are other theories that defy simplicity, attempting to link the pit with historical figures and relics. Numerous theories have been proposed to connect Oak Island to various historical figures and artifacts. However, none have been proven. William Crooker proposes the money pit may have been created by Templars, Masons, or Incas seeking to hide their treasure from Europeans. However, he also states it is more likely that the British dug the pit to store loot acquired during the invasion of Cuba and the 7 Years' War. Other explanations for the pit include its use by Spanish sailors to hold treasure from a wrecked galleon or by British troops stationed on the island during the American Revolution. Another theory suggests French army engineers dug the pit to hide the treasury of the fortress of Louisbourg. In his book Oak Island Secrets, Mark Finnan notes the discovery of numerous Masonic markings on Oak Island. He theorizes the shaft and its mysterious contents seem to replicate a Masonic rite involving a hidden vault with a sacred treasure. Further speculation proposes that exiled Knights Templar could have dug the pit, which might be the final resting place of the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant. As theories swirl, the search for Oak Island's treasure continues.